welcome Denise. She is a teacher and a concerned parent who will talk to you about opting out of the SBAC testing.
Hello, my name is Denise, and I was asked to speak today about opting your child out of the Smarter Balance assessment. I will be talking about my personal experience with opting my daughter out, how I did it, why I did it, and the responses I received. Opting your child out of the Smarter Balance is a personal choice for each family. When I first started looking into it, there was a lot of confusing information that I came across. For example, the state and the school districts will tell you that you cannot opt out your child, that they have to take the test. But after doing some research, which included reading articles, and I even contacted the State Department of Education, I found this not to be so true. As Wendy Leckert, who is a lawyer here in Connecticut and a public school advocate, she explained in her column entitled, "Opting Out, Parents' Answer to a Higher Authority." She noted that the State Department of Education provided districts with a sample letter to parents who indicate that they want to opt their child out, warning them that state law requires that all children enrolled in public schools must take yearly state assessments. But they did not inform parents that there is no punishment to a parent or child who insists on opting out. When it comes down to it, the school district and the state can't really do anything if a parent insists on opting their child out. When I spoke to the State Department of Education, they referred my call to their legal department. So when I was speaking to their legal department, I asked a question because I wanted to know legally what my rights were. And she told me that legally, the state of Connecticut has to test every child. And I said to her, so you're telling me that I cannot opt my child out of this test? And she said to me, we cannot hold a gun to your head or your child and make them take this test. I also asked, so you're not going to show up at my door with a subpoena and take me to court? And she said to me, I don't really think there's anything that we can do. So in my mind, that said to me, I'm opting out my daughter, and nobody is going to tell me that I can't. I would like to briefly go over the handout that was sent by the state to all school districts explaining what to do when they received an opt-out letter from a parent. Okay, and this is the document that they received. So what happens is a parent contacts their public school district to request that their child be removed from testing. So the response that the school district is going to give, or is supposed to give, is that it is to explain to parents that the district has no degree of freedom in that matter, and that federal and state law require that public school students are to be tested. So at that point, you need to go a step further and call the state and ask if you can opt out your child from the testing. At that point, the state is going to inform you that there is no opt-out language in the law. And as long as the student is enrolled in a Connecticut public school, the district is required to test them on some form of statewide exam. Then, you as a parent needs to take step number 3. Go back to the district and inform them that regardless of the law, the district is not to test your child. So the district is then advised to get that statement of intent in writing. And they should respond with the Connecticut State Ed Department's letter that the legal office up there had made, which districts may adapt, citing that all pertinent laws and regulations and asking the parent to reconsider as it is a violation of the law not to comply. So then, step number 4. As a parent, you write back to the district explaining that you understand the law and you've read it, but you insist that your child not be tested. At that point, in this letter that was sent to all districts, it states, in these cases, the district generally does not test the student, and the student is counted as absent for purpose of testing, which will then negatively affect the participation rate for the district. The state, to date, has not done any follow-up on these cases. Again, it tells me that I'm going to opt my child out, and there is nothing that they can do to tell me that I can't. I have been very vocal in my town about Common Core and opting out of the Smarter Balance When talking to other parents about this, I've had some of them pose the question, why would I opt out my child? And my response to that is, I cannot tell you that you should opt out your child. It's a family-by-family decision. However, I can tell you why I decided to opt out my daughter. The Smarter Balance Assessment was designed specifically to test the Common Core standards, which I am greatly opposed to. The standards are developmentally inappropriate and not at all what they claim to be. I will not allow my child to be tested on something that I don't believe is in her best interest. The Smarter Balance Assessment is only a pilot test this year here in Connecticut. It is a test of the test. The Smarter Balance Consortia is using our children to see how well they made the test. So I decided to go online and take a look at some of the sample questions. I'm going to do a math question and an ELA question, and I was looking specifically at 3rd grade questions because my daughter's in 3rd grade. So this is one of the math questions I came across. In the box below, write a number that meets the following conditions. The number must be between 1 and 9. When the number is subtracted from 523, the digit in the ones place of the difference is greater than the ones place of 523. Okay, I will read this again. I will read it again. This is 3rd grade. Okay, I'll read it a little slower, I'm sorry. Louder? Okay.
Please, in English.
I know. The number must be between 1 and 9. When the number is subtracted from 523, the digit in the ones place of the difference is greater than the ones place of 523. Now, I read this question to my father, who works at a nuclear power plant, and I had to read this question over 3 or 4 times to understand first what the question was asking. The correct answer, according to the Smarter Balance, is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9. Okay, so there's a number of different answers, but my question was, 9 is not between 1 and 9. Okay, so how can that be the correct answer? Hold on, the state wants us as parents to subject our 3rd grade children to this. The questions are confusing to say the least. Okay, so here comes the ELA question. Mind you, the ELA portion on the exam is not timed, so children will end up sitting there until they are finished with the test. Now, does that mean for the entire day? No, but if they don't finish the test, they go back to school the next day. That is my assumption. So they sit there until the test is finished. Here is the example. Read the paragraph and complete the task that follows. Children should not choose their own bedtime. There are things to do, and most have homework. Some people need more sleep, but children like talking to friends. The time to go to bed should be children's decision. When they are tired, they go to bed earlier. There are activities to go to, so children learn to be responsible. Now the prompt is, rewrite the paragraph by organizing it correctly, and adding ideas that support the opinion that is given. This ELA question opens up a whole new set of concerns for me. The message in the question is undermining parental authority. So if this is just a sample test, what other questions will be included with a similar message on tests that we don't even get to see what's on them? Children are then asked to come up with reasons of their own to support that viewpoint. Why not have the children choose their own opinion to support it? This test comes from a place of authority in the eyes of the children who are taking it. And most children are going to take these questions that they read as truths because of that. There are so many other topics that would be better suited for this situation. This raises a red flag to me, and that the people writing these tests do not understand the fragile minds of our third-grade children. Mary Flanagan, a licensed clinical social worker and psychotherapist, also raised questions about the adverse effects of Common Core testing and the developmentally inappropriate curricula. She states, Common Core requires children to read informational text that are owned by a handful of corporations. They don't have a filter to distinguish good information from that. So whatever you put in front of them, they take as gospel. They are literal. After going through these sample questions, there was no doubt in my mind that my husband and I made the right decision in opting our daughter out. Gary Thompson, who is Director of Clinical Training and Community Advocacy Services of the Utah-based Early Life Child Psychology and Education Center, he put this, speaking as a father, advised other parents to not participate in Common Core testing and to opt out your children. He states, we have to stop Common Core as it is currently instituted today. One size can't fit all. Parents are, and must always be, the resident experts of their children. The Smarter Balance Assessment Corporation and their vendors are not bigger than my children. If or when you decide to opt your child out, how should you go about doing it, and what kind of a response should you expect? So I'm going to give you my personal experience with this. The first thing I did was I composed a letter stating that I would be opting my daughter out of taking the Smarter Balance test this year. I also stated that I knew my rights as a parent, and there is nothing that the district or the state could do to myself or my child. I then sent this letter to my daughter's teacher, her principal, the district's assistant superintendent, and the superintendent. That way, everyone was aware of my decision and there was no confusion. At this point, I waited to receive that form letter that I was told I was going to get from the district stating that in Connecticut there was no opt-out option. Instead, I received a letter from my daughter's teacher stating that the assistant superintendent would like to talk to me about my opt-out letter. I waited a couple weeks and never received a response. So at that point, I took it upon myself and contacted the assistant superintendent and asked him if he had received my letter. He told me yes, but could only tell me that Connecticut has no opt-out option. I then proceeded to inform him that I knew that the state had sent out a protocol sheet and told the districts to tell parents, give them a response to that letter. At that point, I told him that I had contacted the State Board of Education Department myself and spoke to their legal counsel and was told there really was nothing the state could do if I insisted on opting my child out. This is the point that I'm at right now. I do plan on having a meeting with my daughter's principal and teacher just to make sure that they understand my intent and to figure out what's going to be done during that testing time. We as parents have the right to decide what is best for our children. We are their voices and advocators. If we don't do it, no one will. I will leave you with this. I held a How to Opt Out Your Child meeting in New Milford, which is where I'm from, on Thursday night, and I had a parent ask me to give him my 3 top reasons for opting out my daughter. And this is what I told him. I said, first, the assessment is based on Common Core, and I don't believe that Common Core is in the best interest of my child. Second, after looking at the sample tests, it is developmentally inappropriate and confusing. Not to mention the questions that the one question I read on the test undermined my parental authority. I will not subject my daughter to a test that was designed to make her fail. Third is the whole data mining issue that will be going on through the testing once Common Core is fully implemented. I hope that this information is helpful to you when you go to make your decision as to whether or not to opt your child out of the Smarter Balance Assessment this year. And that's all I have. Okay, can you hold the question till later?
If I can remember it till later.
Go ahead.
It's very quick. My question is, it sounds great to opt them out of the testing, that's a one-time thing that you can opt out. But how in doing that are you able to thwart the effects that Common Core is having on your daughter on a day-to-day basis when that's the way, the method in which it's being
And that's a very good question. And I've thought about that, and my husband and I have talked about, maybe homeschooling or things like that. My daughter is 8, and I've told this to a couple of people. She knows what's going on. She's very aware of Common Core. Does she know exactly what it means? No. Does she know that mommy and daddy think it's bad for her? Yes. Does she know that she is not to sit in front of a computer and even log in on that day that the test is going to be given? Yes. The only way that I see us taking down Common Core is by attacking it through the test. If they can't test it, it's going to fall apart. So if we have nobody in there to test, if children aren't taking the test, I see it falling apart. That's the way I see it.
Teachers don't have to teach to this if there's no evaluation based on the test for the children or for the teachers. So, I mean, to me, if you stop the testing, it also sends a very strong message to the legislature, to the State Department of Ed, to the Board of Education. If enough parents start to do this, it's like a revolution. They won't know what the H to do.
I like boycott all the tests. The children should boycott all the tests. They shouldn't take the test.
Every standard, every type of test,
Yes,
like math
exactly.
tests, DRAs, whatever.
I have some concerns. Can I just say one more thing? I've had some people approach me and say, well, I don't want my child to be ostracized. I don't want this to come down on them. And my response to them is, teachers are in this for your kids. No teacher that's in that classroom is going to do anything like that to your child. I've spoken to the principal. I've spoken to teachers. Get involved with what's going on with them. And the more people you have opting out, there's nothing they can really do.